Okay, review 0. Here we go. So a lot of this is going to be done in the calculator. You'll probably just have to, plug it in yourself. So when it says f of -3, that means that we have to use the f problem. So it's going to say 6 minus parentheses squared, and then we have to plug in the -3. So that's going to be 9, and then 6 minus 9 is -3. So final answer is -3. G of 9 means to use the G problem. So it's going to say 2/3 parentheses plus 1. And then they want you to plug in 9, so we put the 9 in. So if you do this all in the calculator, you can type it exactly how it looks. So this is going to end up saying, I believe, let's see, 3, 6, 7. Final answer is 7. G of 6x. So we're going to go into the G problem. So G problem is this, plus 1, and we're going to plug in 6x. So in the calculator, you can just do this part. So if you do that in the calculator, it gives you 4, and then you just put the x back on. You can't type x's into the calculator, so don't try it. So that's your final answer. Final problem is f of -5x. So if I go to the f problem was 6 minus parentheses squared, and I need to put in a -5x. So a squared means write it twice. So we're going to have 2 of these with the -5x on the inside, which gives us a positive 25x squared. But then we had the 6 minus in front. So that's our final answer, since they're not like terms. Last one of this section says f of x plus 1. Yeah, so f of x plus 1. So it's going to be 6 minus parentheses squared. And this time they want us to put in x plus 1. So again, if it has an exponent of 2, it means write it twice and then multiply it out. So if I multiply this out, it's going to be x squared plus 1x plus 1x again, and then plus 1. So the final answer is going to say x squared plus 2x plus 1. And then we have to remember, this was in parentheses with a minus and a 6 in front of it. So that minus is going to have to distribute, and it's going to change every sign in the problem. It's going to go like this, and then we're going to have that 6 in the front, and the 6 and the 1 have to go together. So I'm going to have -x squared minus 2x plus 5. So just pretend you didn't hear that bell ring, because there's going to be another one in a minute. Okay, next, this right here, this x doesn't matter, and this problem is just saying do the f problem minus the g problem. So we're going to put parentheses with the parentheses and then a minus in between. So f of x has to go first, so it's 7x squared plus 2x. This is 7x plus 10. And we have to distribute the negative, so it's -7x minus 10. And then we're going to have to bring down the 7x squared plus 2x, and then we just combine like terms. So it's going to say 7x squared minus 5x minus 10. That's our final answer. The next one says find f of x over g of x, and remember this x doesn't matter. So they're saying put f on top of g. So the f problem is x squared minus 25. The g of x problem is 4x minus 5. That's our answer. We can't divide these things. We don't learn how to do that until later. This says what is not in the domain. So domain issues come from the bottom right here. So we're going to take the 4x minus 5 equals 0, and then we're going to add 5. The reason I'm doing this is because the bottom is not allowed to equal to 0, so that's why I set it equal to 0. Then I just divide by 4. So x equals 4, 5 over 4, sorry. 5 over 4 is not in the domain, so x cannot equal that. So if we were going to write the domain, it's real easy to write it when it's not in it. You just write the number twice. So it's going to say 5 over 4, 5 over 4 again, and then infinity. Now this question isn't asking us for the domain, but that's how you do it if it did. Okay, next, this says to multiply, so 4x plus 3 and 4x minus 3. It has to be in parentheses. So we're going to get 16x squared minus 12x plus 12x minus 9. So we have 16x squared. These cancel, and then we have minus 9. That's our answer. It says what value is not in the domain. So the only time we have values not in the domain is if we have a fraction with x on the bottom or a radical. So all numbers are in the domain. Numbers in domain. So there aren't any bad numbers. They all work. Okay, number 11. 11 says g of f of 14. So it's a two-step problem. You want to start with the innermost problem first. So we're going to go into the f problem. We're going to plug in 14. Actually, let me undo that real quick. So I'm going to put the square root, parentheses, plus 2. And I'm going to put the 14 inside. Now, if you type all this in the calculator exactly how it looks, the answer is going to say 12. Once we get the 12, now we go into the second problem and we plug in the 12. So the second problem is going to say negative 1/2, parentheses squared, plus 3, parentheses, and then we're going to plug in the 12. So if I was to do this in a calculator, it would look something like this. It's going to say 144. So we're going to have 144, and we're doing half of that. So it's going to be negative 72. And then we're going to have 36. So we've got negative 72, and then plus 36. Negative 72 plus 36 is negative 36. That's our answer. So anytime you have two letters in a row, it just means put one problem into the other. So it says f of g of x. So we're going to take the g of x problem and we're going to put it inside of the f problem. So the g of x is this one. We're going to put it inside of this one. So f of x is parentheses squared minus 6. And then we're going to put the radical 5x plus 1 on the inside. Now the nice thing about that is the square and the radical cancel. So you have 5x plus 1 minus 6. So the final answer is 5x minus 5. Next problem is very similar. You want to put the g problem. I hate this. You want to put the g problem into the f problem. So that's this one inside of this one in both spots. So there's two x's. So you have negative 5 parentheses squared plus parentheses plus 2. And they want us to put 3x inside of it. So 3x goes here, 3x goes here. So for this one, you're going to have to do PEMDAS. So you have to do the exponents first. So this is 9x squared times the negative 5, which gives you negative 45x squared. And then you have, there's nothing here, so this is plus 3x, and then plus 2. That's our final answer. Next question. Same thing, plug f of x into the g. So this time we're going this way. This one is going inside of here. So we're going to have 20 parentheses, and then we're going to put negative 5 over 4, x plus 2. So we distribute the 20. When you distribute the 20, you do it in the calculator. You just don't put the x. So 20 times negative 5 over 4 is negative 25. And then you just put the x back on. And then 20 times 2 is plus 40. And then that's your final answer. Okay, the next one says find the mistake. So this right here wants us to put g inside of f. G goes inside of f here. So we're going to verify that they plugged it in right. So the 2x plus 5 is squared. And then you got the plus 4. Now here's the problem with this question. Here's where the mistake happens. Remember that when you have this exponent, you have to write the problem twice and FOIL it. So there's supposed to actually be 3 answers to this. So that's the mistake. Now I want to just double check and make sure, because it is possible to have 2 mistakes. So I'm going to go into the other side and check that one. So that one puts this problem inside of here. So 2 and then x squared plus 4. You distribute 2x plus 4, and then you combine like terms. So this one's fine. There's nothing wrong with this. So column A has the only mistake. Describe the mistake. They didn't FOIL. A lot of these problems where they do them wrong, they either don't FOIL, or they don't plug it in right, or they don't distribute. Okay, next question, find the inverse. This is a y, so we have to switch the x and the y. So it goes like this. Everything else stays where it's at. And then we solve for y. So I subtract 12. So I have x minus 12 equals negative 3y squared. Divide by negative 3, and I can just cover the whole thing with the negative 3 right there. And then I have y squared equals x minus 12 over minus 3. Last step is to square root it. So that means that y equals square root x minus 12 all over negative 3. And technically, there's supposed to be a plus and minus in front of this. And because it's the inverse, we put a negative 1, and then that's our answer. Okay, inverse of this, same steps. Change that out to a y, and then flip-flop them. Everything else stays where it's at. So 4 over 5 stays there. It's 4, and then plus 1. Solve for y. Subtract 1 from both sides. You have x minus 1 equals 4/5 y. Got to times by 5 to get rid of this, and you got to make sure to put it in parentheses. So these cancel, and now you just divide by 4. So the answer is going to say 5x minus 1 all over 4 is equal to f inverse of x. That's our answer. Number 19 is find the inverse function. So to find the inverse, you need to know the original points. So this one right here, I'm going to kind of put that in the middle. It's 2, negative 1. And then this one right here is at 2, 0. And then this one way over here is at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's going to be at 9, 2. This one over here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to the left. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 down. 7 left, 6 down. So to find the inverse, all you have to do is switch the numbers. So the inverse is going to have these points. And we're not changing signs, we're just flip-flopping them. We're changing the x's and the y's, reversing them basically. So then we regraph that. Now the one that's super, super important is this one right here. And I guess I left it off, but I'm going to just go ahead and talk about this point. This one right here is important because it's basically the starting point of this shape. So when we plot the inverse, that's got to be sort of like the middle. So the inverse is going to be at negative 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Negative 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's off the charts a little bit, but that's okay. Then we have negative 1, negative 2. Then we have 0, 2. Actually, you know what? I just caught that mistake. I don't want to do that. There's a tiny mistake I made on that last one. I'm going to change that. It's not negative 1, negative 2. It's negative 1, positive 2. So that dot should have been up here, not down there. Then you have one at 0, 2. And then you have another one at 2, 9. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's off the charts. So we could also use the fact that it's just going to be the what do you call this? The reflection, yeah. So we're going to have a graph that reflects across. So it's going to go something like this. Like that. And number 20, two functions are inverses, so what must be true about the domain? So if you have an inverse, that means that the x and y switch. So x is considered to be the domain, y is considered to be the range. So it says what must be true about the domain? It's the same as the range of g of x. What must be true about the graph? They're inverses. Inverses, hold on, I'm spelling totally wrong. Inverses reflect across y equals x. If the point is on the graph, describe the point on g of x. So f and g, they're inverses of each other, so you just flip-flop the points. So that means that the point would be y1 comma x1. And that's your answer. Now for these three questions, it's just memorizing. One of those questions is going to be on the actual test. And that's pretty much it for the review.